Today I'm going to go over the Shooto Lockflow #1 as it was taught to me by Sensei Yori Nakamura in the early 2000s when I was training at the Inosanto Academy in Los Angeles. If you're unfamiliar with Shooto, or shoot wrestling as it's sometimes called, it's a dynamic martial art that combines striking, takedowns, and submissions, and utilizes many techniques from various traditional martial arts. It incorporates techniques from Muay Thai, catch wrestling, Sambo, and Judo to create a totally combative sport martial art. Shooto was one of the first true mixed martial arts systems with amateur and professional matches starting in the mid to late 80s. As Shooto students, we were required to pass tests at certain points in order to get promoted to the next level. As part of our first test for Advanced Student 1, I believe it was called, we needed to perform Shooto Lockflow #1, which is a sequence of 30 submissions and positions. The Lockflow that I'm demonstrating today is the exact sequence that I was tested on. I'll post the page out of my actual Shooto test at the end of the video showing the actual Lockflow. Occasionally you'll see Sensei Yori demonstrating a different sequence or variations of the movements. But as I mentioned, the sequence I'm showing today was the exact one that I was tested on. One of the things that impressed me the most about Sensei Yori was the level of detail he would go into when explaining specific techniques. That's reflected today in the way I tend to teach my students. You know, if you don't know the details of a movement, then you won't really know how to properly adjust when an opponent is resisting or when things start going south. You'll see some of the details explained as I do a deep dive into the Lockflow. So, without further ado, let's dive in. We're going to start out in quarter position, right here, and your opponent's going to be on your side like this, and you're going to hook the elbow, and you're going to posture up and put the heel of your palm right in the wrist, right? You're going to connect your hands together, right? They call it double wrist lock. You might recognize this as like a Kimura, right? You're going to post your leg up here, posture up, and you're going to break this grip. Sink down a little bit, pop open that grip. And I'm going to drag her to the floor, and I'm going to hook her leg as I pull it down. Right to the floor, hook that leg. I'm going to straighten the arm, and then push it over her head for the shoulder lock. That's #1. #2, I bend the arm, I unhook the leg, I roll. All right. And for this one, this is a chicken wing. For this one, I'm going to keep her wrist planted in the floor right here, and I'm just going to walk my legs around. Okay, so I'm using some strong muscles here rather than trying to use my wrist or my arm muscles. So I lift and I just walk her around that line. Okay, from here, this one's similar to the first one, the shoulder lock. I'm going to straighten the arm and then I'm going to twist it. So it's called a twist arm lock. All right, next one, I'm going to grab the blade of the hand. I'm going to pull it in like this and bend it and control the elbow. For all wrist locks, it's really important that you control the elbow because that's where the movement's going to start, right? So control the elbow. I'm controlling right on top of the knuckles, and then put your chin on top, and then just press down for the wrist lock. And a lot of the techniques involved in these transitions are based on a reaction that your opponent's going to do. So when we're in this position, she wants to straighten her arm, so she straightens the arm. So I push it to the ground. I keep that wrist planted in the ground. My arm goes underneath her elbow, grabs my own arm, and I lift for the straight arm bar. All right. Next one, I take this out. I replace this hand with this hand. Pull on the elbow, pull it down, make a V. Under. Grab your arm, grab your wrist. I mean, for the V arm lock #1 or V1 arm lock, I think they call it. All right. Next, I'm going to go around her head. So you take this whole thing, you don't let go of anything, go around the head, and then you're going to grab her wrist, and this hand goes underneath her arm here, and I kind of switch to a Keisagatami position. I need to lift her torso up off the floor and then push down. All right, that's called a pillow V arm lock. All right, from here I'm going to let go, and I'm going to do Subo locks. They call these Subo. They're pressure point locks. I'm still holding on to this, so it's a Subo V arm lock. So the first one, and there's variations of this. Typically, we're going to do 3 of them. First one is going to be in the hinge of her jaw. Second one, there's kind of variations, either in the temple or right behind the ear, and then the third one is in the muscle on the neck. So number 1, the hinge of the jaw, and you're using the point of your elbow, right, the bony part, not the. I don't want to be here because it doesn't. There's no pressure there. So the point of your elbow here, 1. You can go temple or behind the ear. Number 2. Number 3, the muscle of the neck, and right. Okay. So those were called Subo V arm locks. After that, you take this arm, bring it across her face, under her head, and I'm going to turn the blade of my wrist up because a lot of these are meant to hurt. Right? They're pain compliance. So I twist my wrist so it's in the back of her neck. I make a fist. I grab my hand and I just push. Right? That is arm triangle, number 1. Right? After this, I'm going to switch to Keisagatami position. It's not really a submission. It's just another position that we're into here. So Keisagatami. And let me just explain really fast. Sometimes you'll see, if you see Sensei Yori do these, sometimes he skips some, sometimes he alters some, sometimes he puts them in different places. What I'm going through now is based directly off of the test that I took. And I'll post that at the end here, the exact sequence and the exact names of these 30 moves. So just in case there's any confusion, you might see Sensei Yori doing it differently, but this is all based off the test that I took, okay? So this one right here was a Keisagatami position here. Important to keep the elbow off the ground, otherwise you're in danger of getting your back taken, okay? So from there, they go into what's called a guillotine neck lock. And again, I'm using the terminology that they use, right? A lot of people will recognize this as a paper cutting show. So I grab my arm, the blade of my wrist goes in the neck, and I just push down. Okay? A lot of times they'll defend, they'll push on the arm. So you take that arm, you straighten it, put that under your leg, and then I'm going to slide my inside of my leg down a little bit closer towards the end of her elbow. I'm going to push down with this hand and grab it, and push down and lift. Okay, that's a straight arm bar, number 1. She defends by twisting her arm this way, all right? So I'm going to twist this way also with my hip, and this is straight arm bar number 2. Sometimes I call it bicycle lock because my legs are going like that. Okay? Now she twists again because it hurts. I catch that wrist, I walk my knee up towards her head, I put that under my leg. All right? Now from here, palm faces out, and I go kind of diagonal across the back of her head. Palm facing out, I do an S grip. Right? I lift, I push down. All right? That's called a V cross arm lock number 1. All right? From here, I'm just going to slide my hips down towards her hips. So I go down, 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 down. V cross arm lock number 2. Number 3, I take the back or the front of my thigh here. I push against her elbow, and then it's like another bicycle lock. So that's V cross arm lock number 3. All right. From here, grab her wrist here. I'm going to figure 4 my hands again. All right. And then now we're into what they call telephone locks. Right? Because it looks like she's talking on a telephone. And here I got this grip. I just push it outward. Telephone lock number 1. Number 2, I'm controlling her wrist again, right? So I push down on her elbow. So wrist lock. So telephone lock number 2. Telephone lock number 3, I grab the wrist, I grab her elbow, and I pull out. Telephone lock number 3. And then finally, for telephone lock number 4, I control the wrist. I push the elbow in, lock it with my ear, and then pull out. Telephone lock number 4. Okay? Now, next one here, push that arm across, and I'm going to pull her up. This is another arm triangle with using the blade of my wrist. I'm going to pull her up on top of my knee here, my thigh. Right, so I pull, make a fist, using the blade of my wrist. I just compress it down. All right, that is arm triangle number 2. All right, from here, control the wrist. All right, figure 4. Now I'm going to take my knee and push it into her face, make her face the ground, and squeeze her head. Push it down, squeeze her head, lift, and then there's another chicken wing right here. Boom. All right. Cross over here, grab her back, control this arm. All right. I'm going to put my foot on top of my ankle here. I pull the head out and then twist. All right. That's called clock head scissors. Clock head scissors. It's in that crank. All right. From here, lift the knee up, fall back. All right. They call this it's an arm bar, but they call it a cross arm hold. All right. After that, bend the wrist, lock it, cross arm wrist lock. There, right? She goes to posture up, goes all the way around. Right, keep your leg heavy on her back here. Right. Reverse cross arm hold. 1. Bend the wrist. 2. Reverse cross arm wrist lock, and then bend the arm. Control it, and then you end up with a reverse cross arm chicken wing right there. And that is the whole sequence right there. All right, thank you, Mary. Yeah, and so I just wanted to mention that, as I said, a lot of these moves, you know, they've been kind of changed. Like this was my test from, I believe, 2003. And you know, as I mentioned, this was like one of my first martial arts that I ever did, and not a lot of people. There's not a lot of people that know what the sequence is because it's been changed, and just because Sensei Yori has gone back to Japan, so he's not even teaching in the States anymore. I don't even know if he's teaching in Japan anymore. So there's a lot of that information that's lost. There are people such as Eric Paulson, who's another one of my coaches back in the day. He knows this. In fact, he's actually expanding on this a little. He's come up with something called Shooto 2.0, where he's incorporated a lot of these lock flows into stuff that new things that he's doing too. So he still has that knowledge. But the original one, not a lot of people have information on it, or not a lot of people know the exact sequence. So I just want to, I wanted to pay homage to my roots and make sure that this information is not lost. I want to make sure everybody knows it and can refer back to it. So, all right, any questions?